Welcome to another episode of Mind Brain Movies. Uh, I'm already fucking up. Today, uh, it's already been a chaotic intro pre-recording today, but it kind of fits the theme of the movie that we're doing. I am your Sherpa into the Mind Brain Hope, and today I have with me the peacekeeper who keeps my sanity together, Boone.
I was gonna be like, it's
And
not
then
me.
And then we also have Dr. Gremlin Elizabeth over here.
In my defense, it was in my calendar at the wrong time.
Wrong time.
But I was gonna be prepared.
I know, dear. It's at the thought that counts. um, so before we get started, I just want to say if you guys out there who are watching, if you could like, comment, subscribe, we would truly appreciate it. It does wonders for us, as well as go to our Patreon. Our Patreon, you get early access to things. Also, as well as every portion of what gets your donation to the Patreon actually goes to Elizabeth's nonprofit. So the more patrons we get, the more we get to give to the nonprofit in order to help everything out. So yay.
And you get
I
to
wanted
see Hope just lose her mind every time I comment.
exactly. I want to give you behind the scenes of my meltdowns before I become a sane person for the episodes. So you know, but yeah, I today we are talking about Akira. So Akira is gosh, it changed the world, I want to say, for animation. It came out in 1988. It was directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. This is like his magnum opus of films. It's actually what got a lot of people back into anime. It's what you know, he inspired my one of my favorite directors, Satoshi Kon, to start doing his films, which we've talked about his films in previous episodes. If you want to check out the Paprika episode, that's another one. But the reason why we're even talking about this today is Boone's idea. Boone, I want to know why you want to deep dive into this.
I like dystopia.
Okay.
That's you,
Just flat
you.
dystopia.
You asked me what I wanted to discuss, and I'm not really a media consumer, so I maybe this is just too much sad storytelling. But I just like to sit and think. I don't
Mhm.
really read or watch anything. Kind of like a robot. If you, that's kind of sad. If you had to think about it, I just sit and think, or like contemplate existence and um,
You're like a
my
monk.
I thank you for making it kinder. So, like, leaning towards the theme I like to think about is dystopia because it challenges so many things about humanity through the lens of entertainment. And I hope that people who do consume it or watch it makes them reflect on what their role is in society and whether these things do exist or not, because it always is true in a certain way, you know.
Mhm.
And I just want to discuss whatever themes that pop into your mind. And I wrote a bunch of notes, so I'm really excited.
No, I'm really excited too. I guarantee you your questions and notes are going to be more than just why. Um,
Questions
Mm,
last time.
who does
In
that?
addition to why.
who does that? God. Uh, I know. So, as per usual, though, um,
Look at her. Just
Elizabeth has never seen this, and I honestly just want to get a gut reaction because Elizabeth is, even though we call her Dr. Gremlin, she really is just like a wealth of knowledge, but not only that, she's also like our happy unicorns and rainbows person.
Mhm.
So she like balances out me and Boone, and this is the complete 180 of that. and I want to get your like gut visceral reaction because I know you're probably like, oh, for this episode.
Um. Okay, so like when I was hearing Boone talk, I was like, yes, I can see the appeal because I've read books and like I seen, movies and stuff. And usually this type of movie is like the movie that I avoid because it's sad. It's just so sad. But there is something about uh like this type of stories, like this stories told being told in this setting, because it brings out about like the best and the worst in humanity. I feel like
Mhm.
it um it really shows like who we truly are in the inside, like without all the societal expectations and um you know niceties that we're accustomed to doing, because it's you're fighting for your survival and you see what people are willing to do in order to survive. And then that's when you see like the best and the worst in humanity. And it really gives us this chance to think about the things that we truly value, the things that we truly care about, the things that really matter in life. Because there's so many times where I'm the oldest in my family. My siblings are younger, and
I
I
was about to
work.
say you're definitely not the oldest in this group. You're the
But
baby of the group.
uh, I would say it, but like this is like in a nice way. Okay, so I the other day when we said that we're like the same age, I was like, "What? I thought you were older," because in my head you're like this really awesome wise person. So that like equates like, like being older to me. And I was like, there's no way she's my age. Like they're probably like she's older than me. And then when you said it, I was like, I'm like, I am truly Dr. Gremlin. um, wait. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I work with kids a lot, and now that I'm older, I think sometimes when I hear about their concerns, I'm kind of like, hey, no worries. Those are things that in the long run don't really matter.
Yeah.
And I feel like I never really had anybody tell me that
Mm.
as a youngster. And so I was constantly worried about things that, again, in the long run didn't really matter. But watching movies or reading stories that are like very dystopian, like gives us a different perspective and allow us to have that space to think about like the things that actually matter, in life, not the minutia that we're often worried about, like what people might say about us, or like, is this my color? Like,
'Cause I love the flowers on it.
yes, look, you're so cute, you guys. There's like Lilo on this side.
Aww.
That is very cute though, not gonna lie. As you can see, we were talking about dystopia, and again, she talks about unicorns and rainbows of flowers. But that's par for the course, and that's why I love you. It definitely balances this out because I know Boone is former emo kid. I am like, I would say like goth elder.
Mm.
We're we need that little kawaii person to like balance us. So
Well, but then I want to hear from you guys. Like, what is the thing that you take away from stories like this, or what makes it? What does it make you
Oh.
think of?
stories like this, I know it's a little bit of background for this for me. This is actually one of the first like manga I read because I read the manga before I ever watched the film. And the manga's a little bit more in depth and everything. Obviously, it was like 6 volumes compared to like the 2 hour movie, but it's really good. Um, and uh, this other than like obviously I grew up with like Dragon Ball Z. That was like the first anime I was ever
Yep. Same.
introduced to and
Same.
everything. Um, but coming from a very deep anime versus like surface fighting anime. This was the first intro, and I was like, oh, oh. um, I think this was my like my gateway anime into, because there's so many people on the surface when they first get introduced to anime, they just think it's like, oh, it's a cartoon for kids, and this was my gateway into like, no, this is what I like.
Mm.
This is like, it makes you think, it makes you wonder. It I When I was reading it, I don't think I should have been reading it, not gonna
Mm.
lie. My mom was like, "Oh, it's a comic." I'm like, "Bro just died and his head exploded, but cool." Uh,
Yeah,
and
for
I was like,
kids. Yeah.
6, and I was like 6, but whatever, it's fine. Uh,
Good lord.
I was like, "Nope, she's not gonna find out. She's not gonna find out." Like, um it was great. It was great though. I've always been introduced and drawn to like very dark things. It makes me think. It's also, I like the aspect of the fact it always revolved around the kids. Like, these kids are the ones who's being experimented on. You don't see them like trying to tap adults.
Mhm.
And I wonder, and it's
Right.
like, why is it? Is it the wavelength? Is it because their brain's still growing? Is it because, according to the cults out there, when you drink the blood of kids, you have immortality? I don't know. Uh, like, uh, so I'm wondering why it's always these kids. And I think at the time as a kid, I was like, why is that me? I know this it was supposed to be aimed for adults, but I was like, why is this going after the kids? And our main characters like Kaneda and Tetsuo, they're what, like 15, 16, if that. And they're still kids too. And they're going through this grandiose dystopian thing. And I just always was thought that was crazy. Uh, I mean, we could also go more into depth nowadays how, like, once you learn the history, this is very resemblance of World War II, you know, the whole bombings and rebuilding, and how it was slummy at first, but they were trying to regrow and rebuild. Like, it's this whole Japanese culture likes to remind everyone what happened to
Mhm.
them.
So important. Yes.
And it's a good healing factor, and as well as a historical factor as well. So,
I think it's good that they did that because I think there's the thing that I always hear where like history is written by the victors, and we hardly ever hear from the other side. So I
yes.
think it's good to have, because I think I was actually listening to another podcast uh, that was talking about like the movies Godzilla, how like the movies that are made in the U.S. About Godzilla are like, he's like this super cool monster or whatever, and then like
Yeah.
the Japanese version of Godzilla is like completely different.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
I'm
This is
like, I,
resembling
I
the
think it's
bomb.
great. Yeah, I think it's great because you see what happened in like completely different way because your experience was different. Like you said, it's a great way to sort of like being able to like express what your experience was. And we kind of see that in Ghibli as well, right? In some of his movies,
Yes.
there's
His
a
earlier
lot.
films, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot. So it really was like a very impactful thing that it touched a lot of people or like impacted a lot of people, and their future work. Uh,
Mhm.
and I really like. I watched. Wait, did you send it to me? They just randomly saw it. Like there was this like video of like the motorcycle scene.
That was me. I sent it to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you sent it to me. Yeah, yeah.
I sent it to the
And
group
I
chat,
see.
Elizabeth.
I can't.
Hey, I remember I saw it. It's good. Um, yeah, it I don't think we often see because honestly, I started watching it and I didn't. really pay attention. I was like, oh yeah, old movie. And then I was like, oh wow, like the animation's weird. Like, yeah. And then I'm like, why do people say this is a great movie? And then when you said it was like from the 80s, I was like, oh, I understand why people said it's a great movie.
Every cell was hand drawn, like, every minutia was done, and when you actually look at some of the background things and, like, the details, especially on his bike, like, holy
Mm-hmm.
crap, it's so good. Oh, and
They
you're
all
just
look
like,
the
"I don't care,
same,
give me
the
modern
face,
anime."
but no, I mean, like, cause I was thinking, like, they all kind of look the same, like, the face is all the same, but, like, yes, I give you that, like, the background scenic, like, whoever was in charge of that, like, props to you, like, mad power, that was amazing, and
But
the
that was
bike,
also
whoever
kind of
did
the
the bike.
stylization of that time for anime as well. If you look at older anime, like Dragon Ball Z, even for instance, if you take away the hair,
They all
almost
look the
everyone has
same.
the same face. If you take away they all have the same face, or like Ranma one half, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at X 1999, same thing. Even with Clamp, all it's like just take away the hair. It's the anime hair syndrome. It is like you can look at the hair and tell who's the main character.
No,
But
but you know what? Because I saw this post the other day where they were like, you know, the original Toy Story, the first one, it's the same thing. All the kids look like Andy. Like if you really
Mhm,
removed like their clothes and
mhm,
stuff, like yeah. So like it just made it easier, I guess, like,
yeah.
to animate back then.
So, Boone, I know I want to hear some of these notes that you took down and some
Okay.
of these questions and everything, because again, you're the one who was like really wanting to jump into this topic. I
Okay.
mean, I always want to talk about Akira, but still.
So, um, it is very similar to Paprika with how I interpret some of the things, but
Oh, really? Oh, okay, okay.
I guess I'll go from just what I scribbled down. So I thought it was interesting that there was a big commentary on extreme science versus extreme faith, right? So if
Yes, the
either one would be a detriment to your sanity because you're no longer rational, like using the guise of science to test on children and then using these experiments when people are like asking you, is this ethical, why did you continue doing this part of the experiment, we didn't even know you kept on doing this. So scientists and people in
yes.
privilege or power using the titles to do something because they're curious, and that for me is always the red flag, because I believe in science, but I also believe in having faith in what you cannot name. So the balance was so cool because um the thing about this is how I interpret faith and science. They're both the same thing. People will probably get angry at me and cancel me for that, but like
It's the no, it's the same coin, just different sides. It really
yeah,
is.
so I think they are both needed for each other. You don't have one without the other. And so when you have faith in science, you can perform these X variables and numbers to prove something. If you have the faith in your spiritual identity or the agenda or whatever that thing is, you have faith that something will be continued to exist because the science is the same thing. Metaphysics is in the middle of all this, right? And so having faith is really the sum of the foundation for both. And so like when they're talking about memories hidden in space dust, that's how I consider um so archetype talk. Like so for me, the collective unconscious really is the faith version of the science of the Big Bang theory.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we all come from nothing and something at the same time. So if
Mhm.
you think about that in terms of science, you have the big explosions and things creating, combining because of impact and things evolving and transforming. If you think about it in terms of faith and spirituality, it's about having and being part of the collective unconscious, and when it's your turn to come out, and you will. So like we're all connected. So Akira is
And
um
the collective
is the
unconscious of
collective
Akira.
unconscious. Akira is just like energy without a name. We all have the capacity to reach a potential, but you have to know what the choice is to use it with intention. So that's what happened with Tetsuo, like you said. So like why are they always using children? I have a connection very much with thinking about children archetypes. So the one that you're talking
Mhm.
about is the so first is the wounded child archetype, the orphaned archetype, and then
Okay.
the magical child archetype, which is like Peter Pan, Harry Potter, things that are very powerful. For all of us, we have an inner child and we're going to resonate with one of these child archetypes. And
Dude,
so,
Japan likes to lean into the orphan archetype
yeah,
real
Japan feels
hard.
so abandoned by the world. And so I get why they keep
They
on doing it.
so many orphans in anime.
Yeah, they're like, the world has neglected us.
In
We got
Disney
bombed.
too.
Disney for sure too. It's like
Yeah.
children are left to save the world, and so I thought that was interesting that they did that again through the lens of a dystopic thing. And um, but my thing was like, I felt so bad for the children. They were so like grotesque looking and older because of the testing that's been done
I
to them. It's like
know.
they're so fragile and so sad. It's just like they're you can hear their childlike voices, but they have so much power and responsibility. Like, how could you put that on a child? That's just so sad.
Also, like, I I don't know about you guys, but like, I wonder where the concept they got it from because I kept thinking progeria.
What's that?
So
Yeah.
progeria is actually a disease where it's like rapidly aging syndrome. So like
Oh,
when children are only like 7, they look like they're 90 and they only have such a short lifespan because
mm-hmm.
of it. Like so if you go and look up progeria, it's awful. But it's usually these kids who have these diseases, they take on the world at a faster pace anyway, not because the cells in their body are rapidly aging. I mean, yeah, that too, but they have to go through all the
Good lord.
medical experiments.
Are you
It
okay?
was my dog.
Are you sure?
Yeah. You want to be alone. Stop,
Good
please.
night, folks. So this is why I donate to the Patreon to help not only the nonprofit, but to help
We need to help
Elizabeth
Liz.
hire a dog to help Elizabeth hire a dog sitter and to help with recording.
Yes. And an assistant to help me keep track of when I'm supposed to be doing something. That'd be
You could
helpful. Thank you.
hire a virtual assistant. They're like $10 an hour, maybe.
That's like, I want a free one. I don't want to pay.
The look on Boone's face. Just label it as an internship and get away with it.
Oh, you can make a
Yes.
petition.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But Dr. Sanchez, I thought I was gonna watch you like with patience. Oh no, you're just my free assistant.
Just
I
tell
need
me
my
when the
laundry done.
meeting
Please
is.
make sure.
Please. Please tell me when the meeting is.
Wait, I wanted to talk about like this idea of because lately I've been trying to learn more about sort of like my own culture and my ancestors because um, that's not something that we discussed in my family at all. So that idea what you were talking about, like the collective, like unconscious, it made me think about like all the cultures that think about how everything is sort of like connected, how we're connected with each other and with nature.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
then so yeah, so it's this really amazing idea of how we help each other in some way, and whatever actions we take, also impact other people. And I think um sadly, because of a lot of really political things that happen, like wars and you know conquering other places, a lot of those sort of beliefs weren't passed down to newer generations. And
Mm,
now that's what we're struggling to do now, right? Like we struggle to even understand how something that we say might be offensive to another person because to us it isn't, you know
right.
or like how our mood may impact another person, or vice versa. So it really is sad that we're not more aware of how connected we truly are, because we're not um like Boone was talking about how these people in power, they're sort of like making all the decisions. And then I'm like, I kind of didn't really want to watch this movie because it just made me mad. It made me so mad because it reminded me of all the bad things that are happening in our current world. You know,
Oh,
like
dude,
how
I
yeah.
forgot about the bridge scene and the bridge collapsing in my hometown.
Oh gosh.
Like, I was like, "Fuck, that's my hometown in Baltimore, fuck." Ugh, but yeah, like, I get you, I get it.
Yeah, and it just it feels like really bad, and I think why a lot of people don't even want to think about it, because it's such a deep rooted, I'm not, I don't know, I don't have a word for it, but like evil, I guess, that it's so hard to get rid of it, you know.
Yeah,
Like in order to, you know, improve the school system, like there's so many other systems that have to also be improved. So it's almost like you're fighting nonstop the whole time. You're trying to make a change. So a lot of us are like, just, you know, I'm focused on surviving right now, so like I don't really care. And didn't
yeah.
we kind of see that like in the movie, where there was a lot of people that were just kind of like, I, you know, you do you over there and like I'll be over here. And you know, it
Yeah,
wasn't
all
until
trying to
something
survive.
happened then it's like, okay, well now I'm interested in what's happening. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it showed basically what happens to kids when they're left to own their own devices in a society where they kind of throw them aside. You see these kids, they resort to the biker gangs in
Mhm.
Akira, and because that they learned they're sent to trade schools, obviously they're going to take what because kids at their core want to learn. They do. So and they took their knowledge of the trade that they did and like building their bikes, but after that there was no structure, no nothing. So of course they're going to run rampant through the city. Of course they're not going to when Tetsuo went through this, of course he's going to make bad decisions because he was abandoned and he doesn't know what to do. He was always been picked on his whole life. He was abandoned and then, when he has this outer worldly thing of Akira calling to him, who's actually calling to him, he's gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go." Someone that actually wants me.
Mhm.
Just like, God damn it, I forget the girl's name, I feel bad. But, like, his girlfriend who he tries to escape with initially, like, he was always nice to her throughout the entire film. Even Kaneda, who was, like, his best friend, he was like, "Fuck you," but the girl, because she actually cared for him in a legitimate way, he was so it's really rough to see the impact of being thrown as a child being thrown away, basically, on how that one action of being thrown away led to the destruction of the entire city, pretty much.
Mhm. Yeah, it made me think of that one quote. I don't know if I have it up still. Of course, I don't have it. So, like, I wanted to share it. Oh, wait, hold. Nope. So, the child that blah 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 isn't embraced by the village will burn it down or something like that. I need to look it up. I can't. No. Embraced village burn down. Quote.
Is it more realistic to have a child who is powerless go through something like this than an adult? Like, just
I
think about this movie, but all the kids were replaced by adults. Would that make it into like a different thing?
Oh, I think it would have been 10 times worse, honestly. I think the explosion would have happened, like, at the beginning of the film, not gonna lie.
If we had
Oh, why?
adults in the role, we would have less compassion because we tend to think that adults should have more rationality and not act, when they're in the heat of the moment. So we tend to make adults more accountable, even though they've been victimized and not supported for years too, right?
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to get at, where like there is this expectation that as an adult you have more power, which to some extent you do, but also you don't, because if you lived in a society where like you're always mistreated, you're probably going to react the same way as, the kids did.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think everything would have happened, but it just would have happened at a faster pace. Because not only are they gonna make the same actions, but they also have the adult brain of the rationale, like, they can plot ahead.
Mm.
Whereas, like,
Mhm.
Tetsuo, when he was going through everything to try and find Akira, he was just kind of, like, going by the seat of his pants. He was just like, "Oh, I'm just
Mhm.
gonna go around," whereas an adult would have been like, "Alright, here's my plan. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z," and just, like, beelined.
Yeah, because the connection to consequences is still more solid as an adult, even though you've been harmed.
Mhm.
Yeah, the plotting. Oh, dude, if you've been hurt for so many years and then you become an adult and you're still hurting, that sucks. To be plotting to take down society. That's so sad.
Well, it is so sad, but it happens in real life
Mhm.
so much more often than not. I feel like there's so many
Oh,
people
yeah.
that carry around this ginormous, like, childhood wound, and they just don't know what to do with it because uh nobody ever taught them, nobody ever had empathy for them, nobody ever said, hey, this is messed up,
Mhm.
that it happened to you. And
Mhm.
then that's when we see like cycles repeating themselves, like, domestic violence happening, um alcohol abuse, substance abuse. It just like keeps repeating itself because it's nobody steps in to like stop that cycle.
Mhm. And there's actually the representation of the repeating cycle at the end of the movie when the explosion happens at the exact same site, which is like, wow, it repeated, it
Yes.
happened again. We could have stopped
So
it,
what
right?
so what people don't realize is Elizabeth didn't finish the film, and so everything we're saying currently, she doesn't know. So at the
No, I know
end
this. Totally, totally know what happened. Yeah.
so at the end, um, basically, they find Akira, um, there and everything goes crazy, and they Tetsuo overloads. He Oh my god, is that why the Sorry, I was just connecting another film. It was another Japanese film with Tetsuo as the main character, and he's like all deformed and stuff. Anyway, um, so I was like, is that connected now? Um, but they at the end there was the explosion again at the same site, and the three kids come to, was it like 25, 28, and 27 or something. Um, they I just only remember the one girl's name Kyoko, the progeria kids. They um they come together and they help Tetsuo and basically like try and prevent the end of the world, so to say, and they just like reabsorb all this energy because they're like, because again, these kids who have been experimented on, they've had to like grow up faster than people. They're like, it'll cost us our lives, but at least the people will be safe. Like, what kid should
Right.
have that
Exactly.
responsibility on them? And the fact that these kids came together and they're just like, "Nope, we got this." Because the whole film, they're asking other people for help. Like Kay, they're like, "Oh, Kay is an older kid; she can help us." Ryu is older; he can help us. At the end, they're like, "Nope, we got this." And I'm like, "Oh God, the babies!"
Mhm.
I'm like, "No child should have that responsibility, even if they have the power. They shouldn't have the responsibility." Ugh.
But it makes me think about, is that the reason why we see so many movies and shows with orphan kids, because the parents are not there? Because I like, maybe in the back of my mind I'm thinking the creators had this idea of, the future is in the hands of the kids, so maybe let's empower them, let's let them know that they have the power to make this, which is good in a way, but also it's kind of um letting the adults get away with it. because there's a lot of like, there's a lot of like, fights between like the boomers and Gen X and, the millennials or whatever. And then they're like, oh, kids these days. Like I hear a lot of like adults complain about how kids are horrible these days. And I'm like, who raised the kids? Who raised the kids? Like,
Yep.
and then a lot of the times I hear too, like on social media or whatever, older parents who are like, well, I was beaten when I was a child and I'm fine. And I'm like, yeah, how are your kids? Like,
So
like
there
it's
is a
not,
there's a
there
systematic
is a
thing.
consequence to that.
So we have like the one generation, they beat their kids, they were super super strict. So then that generation was like, well, I'm not going to be like my parents. And then they overcorrected, became the friend instead of the parent.
Mhm.
And then that created this, which like they're like, how do we even parent? Because, so we're not going to be like our parents because they were the friends and weren't really a parent. So it's like this like overcorrecting each time a generation. It's ridiculous. There's no like happy medium. And then when you do find like a parent who's actually a parent, you're like, what?
Yeah.
In the gifted
There's no
spaces,
balance. We need to have balance.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Boo.
Oh, in the gifted spaces, there's this term called positive disintegration. Um,
What
and
is that?
so it's
Yeah.
this concept where you could name it different things, but in the gifted spaces, is that's what it's called. In the spiritual faithful spaces, it's called shadow disintegration, like shadow work, or the dark night of soul. So when you so there's a waking conscious self that you know. That's all the things that you think you're supposed to be, the persona, right? Your identity and who you are with different people. Damn, Liz.
Stop.
Stop. Okay, so conscious self, and then unconsciously, there's these things that poke at us, right? So when we do the shadow work, we're diving into the unconscious. We're looking at who we don't know who we are, the unmet versions of ourself. And that causes conflict. And for some of us, we cycle very often where we disintegrate our sense of self. And so when Tetsuo did that, he changed too fast. So I always use it as it's a different model of a change cycle. People who are
Okay.
growing are integrating more parts of who they are. So like that map of identity gets bigger and bigger, but you have to do it slowly. So he showed a way where if you integrate too fast and too much because you're impulsive and you're hungry for change and you want all the power, which is archetypal work. Archetype is about reclaiming power. If you do it too fast, you're going to fall apart. You're really going to disintegrate in a way that you cannot come back from. Like
Okay.
you go into the void. So change is a slow process where you
Really?
just consume more of a little bit of who you are. You do the work, you disintegrate. It's like what is it? Tidying up with Marie Kondo. You look at what you want to keep, pick and choose, reform the sense of identity, do that for a while, and then you disintegrate again. But you have to pace it. That's the same for society, where society is supposed to fall apart bit by bit and redo it. But we swing so extreme where the explosions are so big that there's no way that we can rebuild it in a way that's like gradual. So society is not cycling and disintegrating in a way that's maintainable. So for people who
Okay.
look at society a certain way, they think that they have to actually make the whole what's it called? Not a civilization, but whatever that word is that I can't think of. You have to like take the whole thing down before you can rebuild it, which is like how some
So
people think.
how I'm processing this is like cellular death and growth.
Yes.
Like the whole my lab is showing. My lab work is showing. Um so the way I'm thinking is like, so everyone's like, oh, every 7 years your taste buds change. It's like, yes, because that is the life cycle of
Mm,
the cells death and regrowth as you grow older, how like your hair grows, how your skin grows, how your nails grow constantly. And then so that's a normal thing, but again, like with cancers or
yes.
like um like any other disease like eczema or psoriasis or anything like that when it's like happening too fast and it's like, oh well, that's bad, you know,
Mhm.
because cancer, all it is like the abnormal fast growth of a
Yes.
cell. You know, it's supposed to be a normal cell. So that's how I'm processing, and
Yes,
that's
exactly.
it makes so much sense. It really does. That makes so much sense. But the fact that
I
you
also saw
turn it in a
this.
psychological sense makes, oh, I
Isn't
love
that
that.
so
I love
cool?
that.
Yeah.
I love that.
You can see it in history as well, right? There was this one. I wish I would have saved it, but it's this video that I saw where this guy was talking about how I think it was like every 70 years or something like that. Like we just see the same thing over and over again, and it just keeps repeating itself because we're not learning from history.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I think part of it is because we are swinging so far, like to the other side. Um, and, like I just keep thinking about like politics, uh, because
We're just taking turns
we
with the chaos.
yeah, I mean, like basically, like it's when one side they're like, "Oh, we're gonna fix it." They try to fix it, and then the majority of the people are like, "Well, you didn't fix it perfectly," or like, "We still have problems, so we're gonna swing to the
Overcorrection.
other
Mhm.
side,"
Yep.
and it just keeps repeating because it's the same thing. Like they don't have all the power, they don't, they're not able to do it, and then I'm like you can't just like blame one person for like everything that's
Yep.
happening, you know, in the world, or like, you know, it just, yeah, it makes me very upset how
Why?
irrational and emotional we can be sometimes as
Wh
human beings.
why is the one thing coming to mind for all you South Park fans? What I'm thinking is Boone probably knows what I'm about to say. When the devil, he dated Saddam, but then he broke up with Saddam, and he dated Chris, who's like this 90s hippie. And like he was like, so like Chris was the overcorrection of
Yes.
Saddam.
Yes.
And so Saddam's like this dictator, and he's like, I'm gonna get rah, 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 rah. And then Chris is like, I'm a man of the 90s, Satan. It's cool, you know, I'm just gonna let it flow, man. And like so he like overcorrected.
Mhm.
And then he was upset with both choices, and and then Satan went to God, and God's just like, I'll tell you, man, you fucked up. Like, that's all I'm thinking about. But like, switch that to politics, and that's what
And
it
that
is.
works. That's exactly change processes. We swing too far in either extreme. People need to learn, but we're like, we don't understand that there's nuance in this. We don't think it's comfortable enough or like successful change if it's boring and gradual. We want to see the sensational and the big, which is not how change works. Well, maintaining change works like that.
Yeah, just like there's no like wonder drug to like
Mm-mm.
pop a pill, and because everyone's like, oh, what medication are you taking? And I was like, well, I'm on this meds for like my anxiety, depression, blah blah blah. And they're like, oh, and I was like, well, I've been on it for like 10 years, or if not more. And it's like it didn't just like I took it the first day and I was, ha, you
Yeah.
know. But the crazy thing is, you know, it whenever the few times like when I had a lapse in like healthcare or whatever, like the scripts, the doctors didn't like send it through because I was changing doctors, blah blah blah, and I ran out of meds. What's crazy is when they was taken away, it was overnight that I saw the change. I went from my normal quote unquote boring self, whatever, to as my dad so lovingly calls it, Reagan from The Exorcist. Uh,
Dude.
um,
Dang. We need to interview your dad.
I know he would always know, like, when I'd be off my meds, he's like, "Where's the pea soup?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, your head just turned, so I'm looking for the pea soup spitting out of your mouth." I was like, "Fuck
That's so
you."
gross.
But
But
then,
I
like,
think
and when I'd get back on the meds, it was a gradual step back, just
Yes.
like with, people who are on, like, bipolar meds or everything, they're like, "Oh, I'm fine now," and it's like, "Because you're still on the meds, still
Mhm.
stay on your meds. You
Yeah.
don't change it."
but you know that like sometimes we see people I guess in my line of work, who refuse to go to therapy because it's so slow and it's so
Yes.
difficult. So I'd rather just give me the medication to solve it. But like you said, the medication doesn't really solve it. Like it takes a while to figure it out. And sometimes you have to like go through different kinds to figure out like, you know,
Yes.
which one's better for you and has the least side effects. And a lot of the times people are like, oh, it didn't work the first time. Bye. I'm never trying this again.
Yeah.
All therapists, all, you know, doctors or psychiatrists, they're all the same. They're just going to
I
give me
went
the same thing. And I'm like,
dude, I
no,
went through, like,
no, that's not
7
how
different
any of this works.
medications. I went through, like, 7 different medications before I found the right one, you
Hmm.
know, and that in and of itself was a struggle, and then, like, I know I've preached this before, even if, like, I had one therapist that was good for me at the time, you get another therapist when you change,
And
you
that's
know,
you're
like
modeling having faith in science. See, it's both. You have to have both. I need to say that because that was actually perfect.
no,
No,
honestly,
but you know
that makes
what?
me
Ah!
No, you go. You go first.
so that I was just saying that makes me think of the scene on the bridge. I don't know if you got to this, Elizabeth, yet. Um, the scene on the bridge where on one end you have the religious extremists who are like, Akira, we will purify ourselves in the flame. We have faith in Akira. We are gonna go blah blah blah. And then literally on the opposite side of the bridge, you have the scientists in their like transport base, and they're like reading the readouts of like Tetsuo and like
Mhm,
saying like, oh well, Tetsuo is growing at this thing. He's gonna do this, blah blah blah. And like they were so excited because Tetsuo is
mhm.
basically going crazy. And then like but then on the again, they're both going crazy on opposite sides, and it was like a beautiful chaos that they demonstrated.
But I think it was no, I didn't get to the part. But uh when you guys were talking about it, it made me think of like how, you know, we always see religion and science in opposite sides, and you guys said that it's kind of like the same coin, and it really is. But I wanted to also add sort of like the government or the army in there, because it was,
Mm,
there was this one
Yes.
scene where like the army dude was like, yeah, we stopped caring about that, like you scientists have like this faith or whatever you guys just want to do, and we just follow orders. And I'm like, well, that's kind of how it starts, right? Following
Mhm.
orders, following
mhm.
whatever people say in your religious beliefs,
Yes.
following whatever the head scientist is telling you. And sometimes because we don't have our own sort of like independence or our own ideology, that's when things can go really wrong. And
Mm,
it's sad, it's really sad to say, but a lot of the times in schools, that's what we're teaching kids, to just follow the rules. This is how things are done. I was what was it? I don't remember where it doesn't matter. I saw something or read something or somebody told me something, but I learned it from
It was a
somewhere.
conversation we had 2 days ago.
Probably with someone. um they were just talking about how this person was like, well, they never taught me how to do this. And then they
mm,
were like, no, they did teach you. They taught you how to do it, because that's how the real world works. Like there are like hierarchies that you have to go through or whatever, and like, you know, your job or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but also no. I'm like, that's not how it should be. That's not how any of this should work. Like just because it's been like that for like thousands of
mhm.
years or whatever,
Yes.
or like it kind of working, it doesn't mean it should be like that. Because
Mm.
we seen quite recently, especially in the US, probably in other countries too. I just not in touch with the news lately or ever. Um,
You're
but
not in
there
touch with
are
your
a lot of
calendar, let alone the news.
Ouch.
true, true.
Oh.
Sad. Yeah, and
I still love her, folks, I still love her.
and I'm like, I'm in touch with Loki. I know everything that's happening with Loki and my dog. Anyway, wait. Stop distracting me. You're adding fuel to the fire.
We'll purify
um
ourselves through fire.
uh wait, are we going to say no? Oh yeah, like we're not taught how to like think or like problem solve. We're
Yes.
taught how to follow orders,
Yes.
and that's not very helpful. And it makes me upset because we oftentimes push the people who are super creative and who are trying to advance things to make it easier for us, to make it more fun, to make it, whatever. It's We often push them aside and don't give them the opportunities that they need in order to make a better world, because we're like,
Mhm.
no, that's not how things are done. And like, well, they
Mm.
should be, and it's a lot harder to do that change as well. Like, just it, like how it's a lot harder for you to stick with, uh your mental health routine, or with that, healing journey that you started on, because it's I think in the end it's worth it, but we're so used to having everything like right now, like instant.
I
And this is me just
almost
complaining about how my internet is really sucky, which should be better. No, you know what? You know what? I saw this post the other day, which I think, I don't know if I could post it on like my Instagram, but it was this lady talking about how, how a lot of people are there's a lot of controversy when it comes to AI because of what
mhm.
it's doing was taken away from people. And the lady's like, we're just going about it in the wrong direction. Like, I need someone to like cook for me, to clean for me. Like, that's
Yeah.
what AI should be doing,
Yes.
not like
Yes.
creating my works or writing for me. I can take care of that. And I was
Mhm.
like, exactly, yes, I need someone to walk my dogs, someone to do my laundry, someone
Yes.
to keep track of my
Quality of life.
schedule.
Hmm. Like, I just
Yeah,
want to
and but
like take care
instead
of like
we're
disabled people. Can we do that? Can we take care of them? Like, would that help, please? Jeez.
That this makes me think of like it's the Winston Churchill quote where even during the World War he never gave up the like everyone's like, "Oh, push all the money and the funding to the military and push it during the World War II." And he's like, "No, we're not going to take away the money from the arts." And they're like, "Why?" And he's like, "If we give that up, then what are we fighting for?" Like
it's so true.
this
Mhm,
is
mhm.
this is the perfect example. We are fighting for that um knowledge and freedom and everything, and it's yeah, yeah, it shouldn't be taken over. It shouldn't be militarized. It shouldn't be like set in stone with things. Just like yeah, how pretty much in the beginning of the movie Akira, they were like, "Oh, well, the police and the military are working together to destroy the revolution." And all they were saying is like, "Hey, make our city better." Like, "Hey."
Right. If you're not heard, you're going to scream and fight for it. And so it's
Yeah.
misinterpreted as a threat instead of now people don't want to listen because they're on defensive mode. So it's terrible, a terrible cycle. It never works,
Mhm.
but protesting is important.
D So, Boone,
Mhm.
what other, like, notes and things did you have written down? Because I know you had more than
Yeah. So I wrote the a lot. One thing that really poked at me, and we talk about children, right? It's the child responsibility to kill your own friend. Like, that broke
Oh
my
god,
heart because like no one else could stop
Kaneda.
him, and Canada could only get so close to him because he's his friend. And you saw how torn they both were. Like, even Tetsuo was protecting him from like that laser from the satellite, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we will fight, but inside, deep down inside, I'm just wounded and I'm acting out because I'm in pain. At the same time, I will protect you because you are my friend. So like, he didn't lose himself entirely, which is like, again, that's like a jab at adults who can't even compose themselves when they're arguing with friends. Like, yeah, you're heated,
Yeah.
you're fighting. Adults are so upset sometimes that they will kill and harm people, right? But like, these kids are at it at the most extreme versions of power. He's telekinetic, he can read people's minds, he can travel at light speed,
Yeah.
and kill people at the blink of an eye. And still, he had the composure and critical thinking, which is like the foundation of, I think, the whole film. He was able to pause and think about what am I doing here? I can act out with my emotion at the same time. I protected my friend. And then
Mhm.
after a while, he couldn't control it because it was too much. So, like, um, I like that when we watch movies that involve children. So it does go circle back to like using children as a way. Oh yeah. So Liz was talking about how why Japan and other films or Disney too use children. I think it's also like you mentioned your part. I also want to add on to it saying like I think it's a good way to reparent people who are completely wounded with their wounded child
Mm.
archetype. So like
Yeah.
we need to know that this harm has been done, and it's like it does suck that 10, 20, 30 years has gone by and our inner child is still wounded. We're walking around wounded all over the place, spilling blood all over, our guts are just like we never healed. And so these movies do help us feel like we're finally seen. And I have a like again, the emo part of me is like sometimes it's too late for us, but sometimes it's not, because
Mhm.
I believe that we can grow. And so like one of the primary things that was being talked about is like, so when you have an awakening of power or you're about to change with your archetypal journey, it's always about choice. So how are you going to choose the power that you're about to inherit? How are you going to choose to mourn the pain or not? And as children, I think that's too much of responsibility or burden. They're growing
Mhm.
up too fast. It's not fair. Children should be
Yeah.
children. But at the same time, I think it's tapping in to poke a lot of us who didn't get that nurturing. Almost everybody has some wounding in their childhood that some need wasn't met.
Mhm.
We got wronged in some way, and that's fair. So I think something like this is very powerful for us to kind of mourn a little bit more, because when we suppress it, puppy's going to cry, and then we're going to get
Yeah.
more like
We
indirect
sense the
poking.
sadness.
We get triggered. So like I,
Yeah.
as someone who's emo, I choose to trigger myself on purpose so I can heal a little bit more and not have to like emotionally dump on people who had no association with my original pain in the first place. So like my wounding is extra sensational because I'm dramatic, but like I do it on purpose. So again, I don't indirectly harm people when I'm having a bad time. So that's why I like
Mhm.
these types of movies.
And I think to add to that, that's why it's so important for us to have hobbies, for us to be watching these type of movies, for us to be enjoying, anime, for us to be watching, reading books or whatever. And sadly, adults don't do that. And then that's why
Mhm.
it's a lot longer for some people to get to the point where they start healing their inner child, because they are not paying attention to themselves. We are sometimes so focused on what is expected of us. Like earlier, I mentioned that Hope is this like amazing person to me. So that equated like, oh yeah, you're like a lot older than me.
I
I
and
love the
mean
kindergarten logic.
I mean, in my mind, I am totally Sophia from the Golden Girls, not gonna lie, but she
uh,
is my spirit. She is who I wanna be when I'm older. I wanna be the best worst old person.
it, it like we have these sort of like ideas of what adult is supposed to be like. And have you seen those memes where like people are like, oh no, something's happening, I don't know how to fix it, I need an adult, oh I'm an adult, I need an adult, you're adult,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I'm like, That's me my whole entire life." um and that's why I'm like, oh, you're the adult, you're adult. uh right, but like there's this sort of expectation of what it's supposed to be, but it sometimes I struggle with myself because I don't really believe that. I kind of refuse to believe it because I want everyone to have a better life. And that sometimes is foregoing that those expectations of what being a responsible adult is and what
Mhm.
truly matters, in our society. Because um when I was in grad school, my parents, I think, always had this expectation of, oh, well, you're gonna make good money, you're gonna have a good job, so you're gonna be able to pay off those student loans. That's not gonna be a problem, right? And now that I'm like, actually, I want to work for this nonprofit that I created for the rest of my life, so I am not gonna be making that much money. And now they're like, what?
Patreon, people, Patreon.
Please support me.
She's doing great
I need to
work.
eat. I have bills to pay. My puppies need food. I need to buy more Loki merch, please.
Okay, don't emphasize that. That does not help. This is the adult your adult saying, edit your shit.
But it's again, like I had to stop and think for a while, because I was like, is this really the path that I want to choose? And it is, and I'm like, yes, I'm not gonna have as much money as I thought to be able to do all of the cool things, but this is gonna make me happy, and I think that's better than having money to be able to do all these cool things, because if I did that, I was just gonna be burnt out the whole time. So to me, that's
Right.
not worth it. And sometimes we cannot, I think I am fortunate enough to be able to make that decision, because there's a lot of people that want to make a similar decision, but they're not in a position to be able to do that.
Hi. Yeah. But that's why I love and support you, because I am the mom who will support you.
You come. I'm like
I
offering my
I
job, all my friends'
I
jobs. Like, you should come work for me. We have no
I'm vic
funding and way to pay you, but come work for me.
I'm vicariously living through you.
Well, I told you already. You should come live in California. It's really expensive, and I can't afford to pay you anything. And you have to wait like 10 years before that. But you should come and move over here.
Yes, I'll get right on that. Once I'm done, you know, yeah, I'll do just that.
The patrons will help, right?
Damn.
Oh my
Come on,
goodness.
this is for the greater good. Not only are you going to be able to help Hope have a better lifestyle, you're going to help me have a better lifestyle, and then we're going to help a lot of people have a better lifestyle. It is worth
And
it, you guys.
Boone's
Please
just sitting
support
there
our Patreon.
and Boone's just sitting there in the corner like, "I have no part of this. Leave me out of this. I just wanna go
I
on
don't know
with
these
my
people.
life. Why am I here?"
No, I
I
believe in the
thought we were
cause. I'm here to support. Of course I
I
am.
thought we were talking about Akira.
My rigidity. I'm still focused. Don't worry, I got it.
Again, you
Wait,
get the whole
bring us back,
spectrum.
Boom, because I have no idea how to loop it back to the movie.
I mean, you're talking about choice, right? Personal responsibility. And really the nature of a child. Without that, we don't have joy and curiosity. We don't have faith in doing things because we have just faith in the outcome. Like that's
Yeah.
having just complete trust in the universe as a child. Holy crap. So I want to repeat that because I follow my indirect guru. She doesn't know that she's my guru. Carolyn Miss is my archetypal queen. So she talks about the child archetype as like you have faith. No one has destroyed your faith in and trust in the world because your needs were met enough. And that's like the aspect of a child that we want to nurture back within ourselves. So like when you talk about your dreams, I know your inner child archetype is very strong, very nurtured, and like
Yeah.
wants to explore and do the things that bring joy because that is one of the fundamental purposes of life. We forget that when we grow up because we do have to hustle and survive, which is so sad. And so like when you think about the film, it's like this again, the juxtaposition between the children and adult constantly, like the decisions that they're making, the intentions of why they do what they do. The children sacrifice themselves. Like I thought that was like the ultimate thing of being a child with complete trust and faith. Like they knew that they had to do it and there's no second guessing because they had each other too. So like I think it would be completely different if they it was just
Yeah.
one superpowered kid,
And
right?
that's what they were saying, like, the first little boy that we met at the beginning of the film, he's the one who initially goes in, he's like, I can't come back, but I can save
Mm,
Kaneda.
right.
And then the other little boy and the girl I can only remember Kyoko. I don't know why. Uh, I can only remember her name. Um, they were, he was like, "Well, we don't have to," and she's like, "Yes, but if we come together, we can save Kaneda since he wasn't a part of this." She was like the voice of reason. She
Mhm.
was saying like, "Yeah, I know it sucks for us, but he wasn't a part of this. He was just
Yeah.
dragged in. We were already a part of it. So let's at least be responsible enough to save him."
Mhm.
And he's like, "You know what? You're right." And they like hold hands and they go into the void. And
I
then
think
it
there's
loops. Oh, I was
I,
just gonna say it loops back
Mhm.
around at the end how the void comes back to Kaneda
Mhm.
at the very end. And it's like so holistic at the end.
Mhm.
I think there's too this sort of expectation, or like with kids have this ability to sort of dream, or have a goal, and they don't care about the obstacles that are in the way. It's the right thing to do, so they're gonna do it,
Mhm.
and they're just
Mhm.
gonna overcome whatever is on their way. And the older that we get, the more life experience that we get, we just get so down on ourselves because there's so many bad things in the world that eventually we end up losing that. And I think that's really, really sad because um that takes away our wings to fly, to achieve the things that we really want to do, because we're so focused on it's not gonna work, like, I don't have the money, I don't have the education, I don't have the training or whatever. But I'm like, there is always another way. And I think that's why kids are perfect sometimes for these movies, or to tell these stories, because they don't care. They're just gonna find a way to be able to do it, and then they do. And sadly, I feel like there is this sort of like uh expectations from older generations of like, oh, well, I'm old, it's your problem now, you have to save the world now. And I'm
Mhm.
like, but you still live here, dude." Like,
Right,
it's your
exactly.
responsibility. Yeah, like, because I keep thinking back of like that, like Guardians of the Galaxy movie where they're like, why do you want to save the universe? Like, because I live in it. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Like, why would you want to make better change? Because you live in it. Those kids that you couldn't care less about, like their education or whatever, they're the ones that are going to be taking care of you when you can't take care of yourself. So we should help them.
Mhm. Mhm.
This makes me think of another Japanese film, Godzilla Minus One, that just came
Nice.
out recently. I loved it. And there's a scene where there's like a younger kid in the boating group, and he's like, "Oh, what's my role in the Godzilla attack? What's
Yes.
my role to help out?" And the guy like basically like shuns him and says, "Well, you're just a stupid kid. Fuck you." Blah, blah, blah. And he walks away with the professor, and he's like, "I did the right thing. We're doing this for him
Mm.
because I don't want him to die. This is our like I want to make this a better world for him. He's still young.
Oh
He
my
still
gosh.
has that
Yeah.
childhood life."
That
And I was
reminds
just like,
me. Keep
and I
going.
was like,
Yeah.
"That's how it should be.
Yes.
That's how
Yes.
it should be."
Elder
Well, but okay,
sacrificing, right? Yeah.
I kind of disagree with you in just a tiny bit, because I think that sometimes when a child is offering that, there is something they're able to do,
Oh, he
whether
ends up
it's
coming back
guide
and like
people to
saving the
save.
day.
No, yeah, but like,
He ends up coming back
but
and
a
saving
lot
the
of the
day. Okay,
times we dismiss kids because they're kids and we're doing it for them or whatever, but we don't see how strong kids really are and how much they have to offer. So we wave that off. Like,
Yeah.
what was it? Protest that happened, I think, in Miami with like the school shooting. It was like a lot of the kids from the school that were doing this thing, and
Mhm.
they created something amazing, and then all of the adults in high places where like, you're just a kid, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, do you know what you're talking about? Because a lot of the
Mhm.
times as adults we pretend, because, and I can say that now because I'm an adult, not an adult year adult, but still, like, there is a lot of times, and I think now that I started like my own nonprofit and I went through all the work, and I'm like, hey, I think everyone is basically just like figuring it out as we go,
We are
and
all
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something
pretending.
nobody tells. We're all pretending we know what's happening, and that's not true. And then so now I have this, been talking to my brother about sort of like our ancestors and, our culture or whatever, and I have now this belief that everybody has something to offer, whether you are, an elderly person, whether you're an adult, whether you're a kid, whether you're an infant, you have
Mhm.
something to offer the community. But because we are dismissing them, we take away that richness that, they're able to offer. And it would be good for the kiddos to learn, responsibility, to learn how to help others. um I'm not saying, yeah, let them all go to war or whatever. No, that's what I'm saying. You think about what they're capable of depending on, their developmental level. Because, I mean, I could also argue that saying that sending an 18-year-old off to fight, it's too soon. They're
Hmm.
Yeah.
too
Heck
young.
yeah.
They don't know. So,
You can't have a damn
I mean,
beer
what's the
that they
difference between a
you know.
17 and an 18-year-old? Not much.
Mm. Mm.
Dude, I say everyone's a kid till they're, like, minimum 25.
I agree. 25. It made me
Like,
think of
Yeah.
because
like
I work
And
with a
in my case,
girl.
until I'm 40.
I mean,
correct.
I'm just saying, like, I work with a girl, she has a lot of responsibility. Um, she's very smart, very bright, but then, but she's 23, and then when I look over at her and I'm like, "Wow, you are still just a kid," you know? So I get
Mhm.
protective over her because
Hmm.
I'm like, and, like, I'll get frustrated, like, "Oh, you're an adult," but then I sit back and I'm like, "Oh, wait, you're just a kid still."
Mm.
Like, and that's no
Mhm.
slight on her.
Right.
It's I'm just like, "Yes, please enjoy your life."
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So I wanted to comment on like there's context and nuance here between time and our connectedness, right? So when you were talking about Godzilla, I watched it. I loved it too. So it made me
So
think of the reactors leaking after the earthquake. So what happened was there's all this radioactivity in the waters and it's contaminating at a really alarming, dangerous rate. The eldest people who worked at the reactors, all the scientists who were close to death, they volunteered themselves to clean up the mess because they knew all the younger people, if they were to clean up, they would be contaminated and they wouldn't be able
Mhm.
to have children and it would continue on to the rest of the generations. So they sacrificed
Yeah.
themselves. So
Mhm.
like for me, this connectedness has different layers of nuance and responsibility. Children have a different
Yes.
type of responsibility and we should respect them, but they should have a different type of role when it comes to sacrificing yourself in terms of life and death. So like
Mhm.
the end of life people, we do have an important, I'm saying I'm not dying yet, so I'm just, but like
You're still young yourself, shut up.
sorry, I think about death way too much. So like we so much sharing. Okay, so we have this social responsibility and connectedness to go back into, like, again, it's all connected. It's two sides of the same coin. When we die, when we sacrifice ourselves, it's that one quote that I wish I'm not good with quotes today, but I wish I had them. It's like you plant seeds for a tree to grow shade that you will never experience. So like that's
Yes.
what having commitment to the life of the future is. You do things not for your own gratification, but because you know it will help prolong the thriving of a community and connectedness to whoever you care for. And that's the planet, that's the earth, that's the people in your life. And so when you think about it like that, again, go back to the movie. I was so upset at like these greedy politicians and all these old people hoarding money and
Yes.
documentations and deeds and like ownership of things. Like these kids have nothing. We don't need all this stuff. You're like, it's actually literally corporate pigs, a room full of fat men with money making decisions on the poverty stricken people. It's like, again, the disconnect is so strong. Like, you are not giving back, which is so weird to me because when I think of Japanese culture, I don't think of that. It's so interesting that they made that commentary when I don't see Japanese people connected in that way. I feel like there
Yeah,
is more of a collectivism there.
there is, but I think during that time period that they were trying to reflect on, there was, like, that hierarchy. Because like,
Mm.
when because they're basically trying to resemble what happened after World War II, and there was a difference between, like, people higher up and then people still living in the shambles after the bomb, though. Like, and there was, like, they were still handing out, like, rations while they were having full
Mm.
meals.
Mm.
So I think that was more so the commentary was like directly post-war. I
Well, no,
think
wait, hold on.
that's just my
Didn't
idea.
didn't Japan go through this like economic boom like in the 80s, and then it like came crashing down? Like
You
I
mean
saw
us?
I saw
You mean the
no,
US?
Japan. No, no. Japan.
You mean
No,
the
Japan.
US?
No, I think because that happened in Japan because I saw this video and of like these people that were looking at the like these abandoned places, and they were like, oh, like in the 80s this was a great thing, but then there was like
I
that was
saw
because
that.
there was a economic boom. Yeah, and then like afterwards like nobody could maintain it, so there's a lot of like abandoned places.
Mm,
There's other
Yeah,
reasons as well, but um
yeah,
that could also be part, like I don't know exactly when it happened, but it might have been around that time,
mm,
which I don't know. Maybe that's
I
also
don't know.
part of the problem. But even in collectivistic societies, we do have, um, there is like the 1% at the top that
Mm, mhm.
there's a reason why they're in the 1%, you know? And it's because they have all this money and deeds to things, and sharing is not how they made it to the top. So,
mm.
you know,
Yeah.
stay at the top. Why are we talking about so many sad things, you guys?
Because I wanted
Just
to.
makes me sad. Yeah,
Because this is Spoon's episode, Elizabeth.
true. But do you have
Thanks.
any other like things
Let
that you
Spoon
notice from the
shine
movie?
in her sadness.
Remember I told you I was a social four? Social four means I want everyone to suffer.
Exactly. Let her shine in her sadness.
Yay.
Misery loves company.
Yeah. It actually, like, energizes me. It's kind of weird. I don't know.
I'm seeing
Well, I
like
mean,
you legit have like slowly perked up. The more Elizabeth gets depressed over this shit, the more you're happy.
No, it's not
well, but
like that.
no, but no, but kinda. No, but I think there is this like these things need to be said because I talked to my brother about how I like watching this like crime show, and then he's like, why, like this is all scary stuff, and I'm like, because I live in a delusional world where everything is
Mhm.
happy and rainbows, and I have to remind myself sometimes that that's not reality. So it's good. Like we're balancing each other. uh but yeah, like it's good to have these sort of like conversations because it brings about like this anger or like this sadness that otherwise we're not able to express. Like
Right.
I said, like I didn't want to watch this movie because I knew it was just going to make me very upset about the state of the world and how people at the top are handling things, and like I just didn't want to experience that. But sometimes again, we have to remind myself that's why I go vote, right? Because I want to see if I can try to make a change. But you know, there's people out there who say that if we want more people to vote, we should make it into, you know, the elections into like these kind of like Hunger Games style things, and I'm like, I'm not against that.
Also, by the way, Hunger Games totally ripped off Battle Royale,
Yes, it did. Mhm.
Which is another Japanese film.
Loved
It's
it.
amazing.
Yes.
So good.
Mhm, mhm. Have you seen it, Liz?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you're gonna love
I've only
it.
seen Hunger Games. Yay!
We're
I'm
slowly
like,
turning her, Boone. We're
you
slowly
know,
turning her.
To the
you,
dark
you know
side.
what I just realized? You know, I was talking to someone about how color brings me happiness, right? Like I sometimes am understimulated, so I need that stimulation. I like having all my favorite things like around so I can see them often. And right now, I was like, this colorful thing is bringing me happiness because it's just so pretty. And then I realized like I'm wearing like super bright colors and you're both wearing black.
Yep. Yep.
You guys came prepared.
Dude, if you look at I'm that kind of OCD. Like if you go in my closet, I have my clothes organized by color.
Me
Like
too.
I have it by like color, short sleeve, long sleeve, other, and then it goes to like crew top hoodie and then regular hoodie and then zipper hoodie. Like it's all color coordinated and shit. Um, and whenever I look, there's like literally it looks like a black hole when you enter my closet because I have nothing but like black, and there's like this tiny little sliver of like color.
Me too. That's pretty funny.
So I'm just like, what shade of black am I wearing today?
I started putting my long sleeves and my short sleeve, and now I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that. So they just kind of go in there.
Again, but oh, hey, I'm the adultier adult apparently, so you know.
Now everybody
Apparently.
understands why.
But I'm also very OCD about other things too, like my books, I like hardback, softback, color coordinated, and then by author, and then
Oh.
and like my DVDs, I have it like Blu-ray, then DVD, but then I have it subcategorized by like, is it a show? Is it an animated movie? Is it a anime movie, or is it just an anime movie? Is
Nice.
it a like I'm so again, it's totally off tangent, but so as all three of us knew, like we grew up in the Saturday morning cartoons era. We all grew up in that. Like that doesn't exist anymore, and it's really sad. But my Saturday morning cartoon ritual was I'd get up at like whatever it was, like 6:30, 7 a.m. and watch the cartoons. But while I watched the cartoons, I'd get out my binder of Pokemon cards and I would reorganize them by different things every single Saturday. That was like my ritual. And I'm like, and looking back, I'm like, God, I'm a fucking weird kid. I was like, who reorganizes their shit for fun?
I love that we have similar
No.
traits as kids. I used to reorganize and organize my cabinets all the time. All the time.
No,
Or
listen.
I'd go into like the stores and I'd see like things like miskiltered, and I would see an employee be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This wasn't in the right spot." I had to like I would just like they're like, "Well, you're doing my job for me, kid. Whatever."
No, but like I saw this thing where like because I love to read, and then there's like people who are like, buying books and reading, those are two different hobbies.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Yes.
yes. And like somebody was talking about like there was like a TikTok video that I saw of somebody saying that it's the same thing with like craft or art supplies, and sometimes you just have a day off where you're like, hey, I want to organize all my supplies, and then you just organize and reorganize them, and then you just keep buying more, and then you organize and reorganize them. And like if that makes you happy, that's great. Because I was just thinking, I was like, I would love to live in your house. Everything would be so easy to find all the time, but I could never keep that up. Like if and it made me think of, like, I know you guys don't like the Big Bang Theory, but there was this one episode where Sheldon like organized Leonard's closet. No, not Leonard's, Howard's closet, and he was so happy doing it. And I'm like, this is great. If you guys are happy doing that, please come to my house and organize my house for me.
Just like how I'm gonna spring clean your room for you.
Yeah, come and do that. Just don't touch my books or my Loki things.
Don't touch anything at all, but
No, you can touch my closet. That's fine.
Oh my gosh.
Except the
We're
part where I
like
have the
so
books.
similar. I used to clean people's stuff without asking, and I would piss people off. Like, and they're like, "Can you stop
yes.
touching my stuff?" I'm like, I can't help it. It's like I see dust, it's dirty, it's disorganized. Or like I would my version of play as a kid was like I'd visit family, my cousins and my aunt, and then I would see a dirty table and I started cleaning, and they're like, this is exceptional. This is awesome. And I would invite my
Yeah.
cousins. They were younger than me. Like, you guys want to clean with me? I'm like, what the heck?
I was like that as a kid too, and then like I went through like a phase like in like somewhat adulthood where I was never messy, but I was like, my biggest thing for the longest period of time was my clothes.
Hmm.
I had a clean clothes pile and then like a dirty clothes pile, but it was never like folded or hung. And that, like, everything else was totally organized and clean, but that was like my one like vice where I was like, and people would be like, What?" I was like, "Don't worry, that's the clean clothes pile. That's the to be washed clothes pile, and that's like the dirty clothes pile." And they're like, "Everything else is immaculate.
Yeah.
What the fuck?" And I'm like, I have my one thing.
Mm-hmm. Gotta let
Getting better
loose.
at it though.
I had a kiddo come to my office one time, and like I said, I like visual stimulation, so I like having a lot of things around. My office had a lot of like toys and books and stuff. She came into my to my office one day, and she said like, "Can I clean your office?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, you can."
I think you sent
But
me update photos of that.
yeah, she encouraged me to put stickers on the back of my laptop because she said like, "Where do you have them here?" And I was like, "I will put it there." And she's like, "We'll do it now." And I was like, "Okay." But yeah, again, if like that makes you happy, then that's fine.
Oh, by the
Have at
way,
it.
if you make a sticker, I'll put on my laptop or my water bottle.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay.
So if anybody
Oh,
knows,
I just had a website where I got Mind Brain movie stickers made, so I can send you the link to get yours done too.
oh yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
So
and
I
by
think
the way, have you guys gotten the Mind Brain Movies T-shirt and the Jaguar Sharks swag?
I was about to say, speaking of which, you can check out our merch store. It's great. It helps support us. And again, if you want to check out the Patreon, help us out. Again, like, comment, subscribe. It really does wonders. I currently, me and these girls do it for free, basically. I mean, I love them to death. I thank them every day, like, for doing this with me. I have so much fun with them. But, if we could have some support, even if it's just like basics to maintain our equipment, like, that would be great. Get Boone, uh, some peace of mind for having to deal with Elizabeth. Get some Elizabeth. Um,
Booney's
get
sanity
Dog sitter.
fund.
Yeah, get Boone that, get Elizabeth some WD-40 for her mic stand.
You know what I realized? I don't have my squishy, so I keep moving the thing around.
My point. Um, but yeah, I think that's gonna wrap up this episode for today. Um, yeah, what are some other I'd like to hear in the comments, like, what are some other dystopian type movies, or, what does Akira make you think of? Like, let us know. I wanna see people's comments and, like, respond to them, so please do that, that'd be great. But again, thank you, ladies. Love you both so much. Even if we went down Elizabeth, even though we went down the dark rabbit hole for you today, but I enjoy it, so
I was gonna be like, yeah, if you guys want to see me sad, let us know of other movies. Because okay, I complain about it all the time, but these are actually great movies, and
yes.
I really do enjoy watching them, which is why I'm doing this. You say you're forcing us to do it or whatever, but I wouldn't have watched any of these movies, and I'm like, my life would have been really sad, without enjoying these masterpieces. Because really, sometimes we do have to step out of our comfort zone.
Yes. All right. And again, on that note, good night, and hope you enjoyed our journey into the mind brain today.